Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with another special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's special selection comes at us from Alexander. The band, INTER ARMA. The album, Sulphur English. The song, Citadel. So let's dive into this and see what INTER ARMA is bringing to the channel today. Check the tempo on this. Singing about a solid 60 BPM right there in the nice adagio range. We had these really shrill harmonics earlier, and now we have these shrill vocals in the background. They like to create these heavy atmospheres and then put these higher pitched ornamental things around it. This is our only deviation, giving us a 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That delayed transition. Wow, I like the guitar tone over here. This one's more of a traditional metal sound. This is kind of lasery. Oh, this is cool. So we're using our 6, but we put it in 8, and so 7 and 8 are just silent here. And now we're back to the 6. Interesting production on the solo guitar there, a bit in the background, but perfect for what they're aiming to achieve here. The bass is just this booming sound underneath. Almost entering into sub-bass territories at times. I just have to feel it. The dyads are a nice change of pace from our solo leads. So that's the second time that they've extended a line by 2 beats to act as a transition into a new idea by basically allowing the record to skip for a moment. Even this idea right here, that sort of blooming of the first note into a descending line is something they use all over this track. It's present in almost every riff. Okay, I want to rewind it back a little bit once this finishes for real. I'm not gonna stop it early, that's rude. But I want to go back to that expansion of our 3/4 or 6/8 idea. I count it in 6 because I think that's easier. Basically a 3 double time. Let me see if I can pull this back up real quick. So I want to showcase how they expanded their 3 idea into the full 4 of silence. So here we go. Okay, a little bit before this then. Alright. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The other way is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so I kind of counted it both ways there in the original 3 so that you can see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Normally we would just start over there. Start the riff over, but instead they put those 2 beats there at the end. So you can count it as 3, 3, 2, or what is probably written, if we were to write it, would be 2 bars of 4, 4. And so they take this riff that we've heard like 2 times already, and they just put space behind it. And what's really interesting is that prog music does this often already. We've talked about this before. If you go check out my buddy over at the Prog School, Morgan over there talks about this often, of taking a riff and stretching it or squashing it in order to adjust the length of time that you play it. You can write a full riff, chop off the last 5 notes, and utilize 2 of those notes, all 5 of those notes, 1 of those notes, none of those notes, and now you have a bunch of riffs taking up different space, and allows you to change the time signature every bar, every phrase if you would like. And sometimes you'll write a riff and you want to extend it, so you just replay what you did at the end, like the last 2 beats, play them again, that kind of vibe. And we actually saw some of that in here too. But this was really interesting because they take what they played and then instead of repeating it or adding to it, they just added beats and didn't play over them. That's kind of funny, but it's also kind of ingenious. It creates space. It creates pause. It tells a story. There's something really interesting in that moment, and I don't know that I can talk about it just yet. We need to talk about what the song's doing before I can speak about why that pause might be really important. So, uh, The song is heavy, atmospheric textures. There is always a burst of energy and a withdrawal of energy. Our core riff, whether it's the 4 variant, the 3 variant, the 6 variant, the 8 variant, it really doesn't matter. This shows up all over the place. But we can hear it in that section we just listened to, the bloom. Wow, womp womp. Wow, womp womp. It's a burst of energy that comes through from nothing, or not necessarily nothing, but nothing comparatively. A very quiet section pushes through, expands, blooms, and then punctuates as an ending. And we can actually hear this diminishment all throughout this. Whether it's the 2 beats to sort of punctuate the ending, or a series of notes cascading downwards, pitch-wise, there is this burst of energy up, and the recess, the decline, the pullback. It is energy, it is movement, and it is release. Part of me wants to think of this as, trying to start a lawnmower, right? But I don't think necessarily that's the imagery I want to associate with this track, because that's a concept of not getting able to start, and this is more about tension and release. Think about your legs when you walk, or when people walk. Not everyone can walk, so I think it's rude to say when you walk. Just, generally people, when they choose to walk, one foot goes forward, takes a lot of pressure. We release the pressure from the other one and put all of our weight on one foot, and this cycle shifts between which leg has our weight. There's a moment of putting a lot of pressure on one, and then removing that pressure from one. Another way I think this kind of works too, and what I think of with this blooming effect, is the way a cylinder engine works. The gasoline gets put into the area, I don't know what it's called, and then it's ignited. The explosion pushes the piston around, the space is created for more, the piston makes its loop or whatever, then more fuel is injected to create another explosion with the spark plug, and this is what keeps it going. There's a burst and a release, and a burst and a release. And that's super simplified. It's probably incorrect technically, but that is generally how I understand engines working. So, if you want to correct me on that, I'm always down to learn, but I think I generally got it correct enough for the purpose of this concept, at least. It is, to me, the idea of a giant walking. You can also think about it in terms of the stereotypical film visual metaphor of a giant walking. A couple of people sitting in a restaurant, when all of a sudden a couple ripples appear in the drink cup. Camera pans over, neatly looks into it. The ripples get wider and larger before panning up to see a giant foot crash down in front of the restaurants. Each of the footsteps is a massive amount of energy. So much so, not only can you feel it, but you can see the dispersion of the energy. This song feels like giant footsteps. It feels like an engine moving slowly. Nope, that one doesn't work so well. It is constant forward momentum, but it's uncaring. It simply is. There is something pushing forward. It doesn't care about you. It doesn't care about me. We're just ants. We're pests in the way. It might not even notice us. That is this song to me. Every moment of it. The slow tempo, the rising and falling action in each individual riff, the heaviness and weight. I'd even say that there is a negative component to the atmosphere of this track. It feels heavy and weighty, which to me feels antagonistic. It wants me to feel stressful and anxious, but I don't think the music itself is. tense, or anxious. I don't think the music is implying dread. It's simply describing this beast scientifically, distant from its actions, much like a documentary on this massive force that no one can stop, that is just cutting through the lands. To all of us, so small, it feels massive. It's enormous. It's dreadful. On a cosmic scale, though, it just is. And so I really appreciate those moments of silence when we take that six riff that we've had and we expand it out 2 extra beats to make it an 8 beat phrase, but we just leave silence because it really exemplifies this feeling of awe, which I don't think is felt anywhere else. The song is cold. It's not really emotionally resonant. It speaks to the size of this thing, metaphorically, possibly a feeling, physically, literally, maybe some sort of giant. But in these moments, the footstep drops and the music cuts out, and all that's left is the reverb from it. Nothing is played for those 2 beats, and yet there isn't silence. And it's the moment when you just kind of realize everything, when the perspective is put into place. We're scared of this. This is terrifying. We're so tiny compared to it. But from its perspective, it might not even notice us. It is something so large that it can be completely uncaring towards our existence, and that is something to be awestruck about. The feeling of a cosmic entity, or maybe even just a shared emotion, a feeling of dread put on by the cosmos on us. The cosmos doesn't care about us. Might even just be, we can personify it as the earth. The earth doesn't care about us. We're just here on it. But many of us share a type of dread about the future of this planet, particularly the natural side of it. This feeling, I think, of understanding how small we are and how large this is, and just the sheer disparity between the two can put things in a perspective that I think introduces the concept of awe. It is a moment to feel and understand the sheer size of this. Because everything else is the rush. It's step after step after step. It doesn't stop. It shakes everything. It is this weight pushing down on us constantly. But for a moment, the song pauses. And for a split second, it's not quite as pressing a matter anymore. And so you can divorce yourself from the fight or flight concept of this whole interaction here and recognize it for the spectacle that it is. It's no longer immediate, at least for a couple of seconds. And you just really get to feel the far-reaching effects of whatever this massive sound is supposed to represent. Again, I want to reiterate, for 2 beats, nothing plays, and yet we are far from silence. It's a beautiful moment. Now, I don't know what the song's about, it's called Citadel, and I mean, Citadel can be something big, imposing, but I suppose we should dive into some lyrics and see what particularly is going on there. Maybe we can tie some of this all together. Is this about mental health? Most of the lines are about walking down paths that have defeated most other travelers. It says, I go down unsung paths that burn out the most hardened of drifters. I wander endlessly through houses turned to graves. It says, I'm held captive by untold wounds of corporeal and psychic root, aloft in a storm of unseen anguish, where joy and sorrow intertwine. That makes up 70% of the lyrics. We revisit a lot of lines here. But the idea of going down these places, seeing all this death and decay where people have failed before you, walking down this path held captive by mental wounds, stuck in a storm of unseen anguish where joy and sorrow intertwine. It really does feel like somebody who is battling depression. That's the image I get out of this. And so we get to the few lines that I think are an attempt to get out of this. He says, can I shake free the detritus of these countless vagrant years? Can I harness the wild flame that lays dormant deep within? He says, I have the ability to break out of this, but can I do it? The end of the track says, a fire burns deep in the citadel of my heart. I will break free from captivity. I will weather the storm. I will shake free from detritus. I will harness the wild flame. It becomes a bit of a mantra. I will improve my life. I will not be bound by what drags me down. Yeah. And when you mix that with the constant imposing slow movement of the track at 100% can be understood as the weight of depression and the never endingness of it. It is constant, it is bearing, and it is uncaring. Now, one thing I completely forgot to talk about, so focused on the atmosphere of it all, are the plethora of guitar solos in here. And reading these lines, I do think that it's possible the guitar solos, with their energy, the speed of it, the flourish, the brightness, it cuts through the noise. In fact, the first solo I mentioned, it worked well, but the production was quite a bit pushed into the mix. It didn't stand out where I would normally expect a guitar solo to be, but by the end of it, especially after we had the duet, the guitar solos were a bit more present. I'm curious if this is supposed to be the fire from within, the desire, putting the work into improving your mental health, battling depression. This is the personal energy trying to cut through the noise and the weight. I think it is. At least that's how I read it. Those are my thoughts on Inter Arma's Citadel. Let me know what yours are. Do you agree with me? Disagree with me? Have anything you'd like to add on to what I said? Correct me on, give me your own perspectives and opinion on. Put that stuff down in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here to this menu. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today, but I will be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC. We did disable our daylight saving time. Disable it, like it's just a little switch we turn off. No, we went back into Standard Time, so it is now 10 p.m. UTC, not 9 p.m. So apply that to your own time zone properly. Maybe I'm in the same time as always. Maybe we are all moving on and off of daylight saving time. Maybe your region doesn't do daylight saving time. What a wonder that must be. In which case I will be a little later, I believe, than usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.